Okay, let's get started while folks are, I think a few more are filing in. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. I am Michelle Rosso. I'm the Executive Director of Adcraft Club of Detroit, and we're really happy to see you at today's Tuesday Talk, which promises to be a great one. Before we get into the program, just a couple of announcements. As a nonprofit, Adcraft is a nonprofit. We are almost 115 years old, the oldest nonprofit advertising association in the country. We rely on membership dues to fund programming like today in our operations. So when you get that membership renewal notice in your email, please renew. And if you are tuning in today and you are not a member, we would love for you to join. It only takes a few minutes at adcraft.org. So if you could do that, we would really appreciate it. So a couple of notes on our day show. We've got a few more weeks of Tuesday Talks coming up. Let me just flip our slide here. Here we go. So we just announced, this one is very cool, that on October 13th, that's next Tuesday, we have three-time Olympic gold medalist Carrie Walsh Jennings joining us for a Tuesday Talk. And that'll be moderated by NBC sportscaster Mike Tirico, a friend of Adcraft. So we're thrilled about that one. And then we're rounding out the Tuesday Talks for the year on the 20th with talent from ESPN. We'll have Clinton Yates from The Undefeated, along with Kelly Carter from ESPN, who is also a Michigan State University alumni. Very exciting. So we hope you can join us for those two. Registration will open for Clinton and Kelly immediately following today's program. And then a couple of events we wanted to make sure you have on your radar. Our Trivia Tuesdays kick off tonight. So registration for tonight's is closed, but again, you can join every Tuesday in October. It's free for Adcraft members. It's $5 if you're a non-member from 7 to 8. So we'll have a lot of fun there. There's some great prizes. So we hope to see you there. And then Oktoberfest, we just announced that last week. We are doing a safe and fun COVID-19 compliant Oktoberfest fundraising dinner on Thursday the 15th at Dick O'Dow's in Birmingham. That'll be from 5 to 7. That one is selling fast, so there's still a few seats left. If you're interested, you can register for that on our website. So Trivia Tuesday, Oktoberfest. Next order of business, I'd like to introduce Adcraft board member and Executive Vice President and Chief Creative Officer of MRM, Jeff Cruz. Take it away, Jeff.
Thank you. Firing on my video. Welcome everyone to another Tuesday Talk. Very excited to have a conversation with Malika Reid today. And if you're ever wondering how we have the good fortune to find such amazing people to have these conversations with, more often than not, it's just random, unsolicited reach outs through LinkedIn to interesting people that I think would be amazing to have a conversation with. And that is very much how it played out with my new bestie, Malika. I reached out, she agreed to have a chat with us. Interesting story in terms of her role as an art director at Goodby Silverstein and Partners, but also has a bit of a side hustle that I'm sure she'll be telling us all about as co-host of her Bag of Lies podcast. So with that, you want to come on down, Malika, fire up your camera, and we can, yay, welcome to Detroit. So why don't we just, start with the basics and tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe some of the interesting projects you've been working on.
Well, hey guys, I'm Malika, and Jeff Cruz is now my new bestie, like he just mentioned. But I'm an art director. I currently work at Goodby Silverstein and Partners. I'm originally from the East Coast. I'm from Brooklyn. Shout out to Brooklyn. I'm a proud Caribbean American. My mother is from Jamaica. My father is from Trinidad and Tobago. And I try to infuse, my background and culture into everything I do. Currently, I'm working on clients such as BMW, HP, Liberty Mutual, Xfinity, Comcast, and then I have a couple of nonprofit clients such as Courageous Conversations, and in the past I've worked with organizations such as Planned Parenthood. And I've been fortunate to, have an interesting career and an interesting start into advertising. Originally, I studied advertising in my undergrad. I studied at Florida International University. And I initially set out to be like, I'm going to just leave college and get straight into it. But then there was a recession and it was like, nah, it wasn't a good time. So I ended up actually doing a pivot and working in nonprofit work and getting my start there. So my first, beginnings into like my career was mostly rooted in doing advocacy work, fundraising and development work, and working for nonprofits and doing marketing. But after a few years of doing that, I wanted to have, more of a creative purpose because, like in undergrad, I studied advertising. So then I decided to go back to school. I went to Miami Ad School and I studied art direction and I got a portfolio. And after I got my portfolio together, I started getting internships, and then I got my foot in the door and I got into advertising. And from there, I had my start at a small shop called SS&K. That was my first full-time job. And it was just like the perfect place for me at the time because I had just, pivoted from my career in nonprofit work and starting off into advertising. And the great thing about SS&K was they were a small shop that was, at the intersection of nonprofit clients, but also like consumer facing, clients like brand work. So I was able there to get, my first start working on clients such as like Planned Parenthood, but also able to work with clients like E-Trade and be able to, use my expertise and my nonprofit background and segue into, doing advertising. And one of the first things I actually shot was in Detroit, actually. And that actually started my love affair with Detroit. I think it's such a cool town, cool city. It was a campaign for Fusion TV, which is no longer in business, but they were, a great client at the time. But the campaign was Calling All Voices. So we basically, created this campaign to share people's opinions about, what they were most interested in, talking about with the upcoming election. This was back in 2016, before the change of Barack Obama to Trump. And we got to interview a lot of people in Detroit, and it was just a cool experience and getting to meet people and getting to learn the culture. So when Jeff reached out to me and he told me about the Detroit connection, I was like, oh yeah, for sure. Love Detroit people. But currently I'm working on some cool projects. I recently just launched a project for HP, which is a short film where we hero, the most unlikely hero, an IT manager. I've also just recently launched a film for BMW, some brand work. And the work you'll probably be the most familiar with that I've had a part in is my stuff for Liberty Mutual. I've launched the campaign for Limu, Emu, and Doug. Yes, Limu, who's an emu, and Doug, where we talk about selling car insurance with an emu, and that's a fun campaign. And recently before that, I've also did campaign work with Amy Poehler for Xfinity. So it's been an interesting ride with some of the consumer facing work that I've been doing recently. But outside of the consumer facing projects that I've been doing, I've also had a chance to continue doing great stuff for nonprofit clients. And one of those clients that I've been able to work with recently is Courageous Conversations, who I've been lucky enough to launch the amazing campaign Not a Gun for recently. And Not a Gun is close to my heart because it gets at the roots of where I initially started my career, which is in nonprofit and advocacy work. The goal of Not a Gun is to highlight the systemic problem of violence facing people of color. Black people are 3 times more likely than white people to be killed by police. And the great work with Not a Gun is that it highlights this, and it has a clear call to action where people can actually sign a petition and to get more police training, more police like unbiased training, so that we can, help to solve this problem of like police brutality. And the great thing with Not a Gun is it works with police officers and the community to find a solution there. So I have some great projects that, are in the works. Yeah.
Awesome. And not to put you off, I'm going to go on no video, just it's all eyes are on you, Malika, just
okay.
Being my new bestie and all. So I'm guessing when we do Q&A at the end, people are going to start asking more about Doug and shooting with an emu. So just heads up on that. But one of the things I found interesting and as I began to read about you, and then as we did some of our prep conversations, was you're also into side hustles or side projects. And of course, one of your first and foremost is your Bag of Lies podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into that and honestly, why you do that?
Oh, I believe that, everyone should have a side hustle. Everyone should have a side project. It's a great way to hone your brand and hone your voice and really show people like the type of work that, you want to do and share in the world. Um, and the great thing about Bag of Lies is it's not even a visual medium. And that's so interesting for a lot of people because, I'm an art director. The medium that I work the closest with is, visuals. And with Bag of Lies, it's a podcast where, we use little white lies as a lens to explore the world that we live in. I know most of the time when I tell people, about Bag of Lies, people are like, wait, what? You have a podcast about lying? Their thoughts start to go to like this place of like nefarious, like, betrayal and backstabbing. But it's chill. It's not about that. It's really about, the ways that we tell little white lies to navigate the world. And to give you a background about, how we launched this podcast, me and, my co-host, we were out getting coffee one day and I gave the barista, a fake coffee name because my name is Malika. A lot of people, they mispronounce it, they misspell it. And I started coming up with like fake coffee names and landed on, one in particular, Emma, to get around this tricky, weird social interaction that happens pretty often. I'm a big coffee drinker. I love coffee. So I constantly find myself out in the world, ordering coffee. And so I told the barista, my fake coffee name, and I felt bad at the time because she was such a cool girl. And I thought, damn, me and this girl could have been friends, but I already got off on the wrong foot because I gave her my fake coffee name. And I was confiding in my friend at the time. And she was like, what? I do weird things like that too. And I was like, you do? She's like, yeah. She's like, sometimes when I go shopping and I'm in like a high-end store, as a woman of color, sometimes I feel out of place. So I'll put on like a weird British accent so people don't question why I'm in this high-end, shopping store. And I was like, girl, I've been there. I've done that too. I've like kind of like, played up myself in like weird social interactions because I didn't really know how I was being, perceived or, people's like expectations of me. And, we realized at that moment, like, we can't be alone in like the weird, quirky things that, we do, or the little lies that people tell, in their day-to-day lives to get out of tricky situations. So that was like the basis for how we formed the podcast. And then from there, we found guests and we started interviewing them about the things that they lie about. And we use it as a vehicle to really foster conversations about interesting topics. And through our podcast, we've been able to tackle like dating and lying. So it's like, when do you start, showing up as your true self when you're first dating, We've also tackled, comedy and lying. With comedy, there's a lot of truth and there's also a lot of like playing with the truth, extremes in storytelling. And that was an interesting thing. And most recently this year, we also, did a conversation about lying and being Black and what does it, mean to be, Black in the world and how to navigate it and why do we lie about certain things, as Black people. So it's been an interesting way for us to dive deep into interesting conversations, but we also tackle it in like a lighthearted way. I've heard from listeners that when they listen to our podcast, it feels like you're in the room with, friends just laughing and getting on. Like you wonder if you should be hearing this conversation. Sometimes it might feel like you're eavesdropping on like a group of close friends, just, talking about, random things that close friends do. So it's all very chill and it's all very lighthearted and it's all very fun. But through Bag of Lies, it's really offered me the opportunity to work on my craft as a storyteller. As I previously mentioned, I mostly work in visual mediums. I make films or I make, things for, social assets or, I make out of home. And so with Bag of Lies, it really forced me to think about storytelling in a new way. And it's taught me a lot more about craft and storytelling. And that's why I encourage other people to step outside of what they do day to day and to find side hustles and side projects to continue to inspire them and that they can learn from and grow in their craft. And, Bag of Lies has just been such a great project for me. And through that, now I'm starting to think about other side projects and other ways that I can be a storyteller and hone my craft. And if you want to listen to, Bag of Lies, you can find us on Spotify, you can find us on Apple, iTunes, and I'm sure they'll drop in our Instagram handle and a link to our website in the chat for you guys.
You know we will. You know we will. Great. I love the answer and the connection to craft and working in other mediums really extends your craft and knowing you'll be able to apply it, you know, things you learn and experience from your side hustle to your regular day-to-day hustle working with emus. I'm going to ask, because you said I could and we could talk about it. I'm curious, what's your take on diversity within our ad business? You touched on it lightly within culture broadly, but what's your take on, you know, diversity within, you know, our beloved ad business?
I spent a lot of time being the only in the room. And it wasn't until recently that I started seeing, you know, more people that look like me or, you know, don't even look like me, but are from, you know, different backgrounds. And I think one of the reasons why, you know, when I first started trying to get in the door from, you know, getting into the industry of advertising, why I failed is because I didn't really have, you know, a support network. And people didn't really see the need for, you know, someone like me being in advertising. And I feel like, you know, since that happened, you know, years ago, and since now I'm back in advertising as a creative, things have changed greatly. You know, people are now waking up and realizing that the world is becoming more diverse. And in order to reach diverse audiences, you have to, you know, you have to have that representation in the work. And in order to make work that speaks to diverse audiences, you have to bring more diverse people to the table in order to create those stories and share those stories and those perspectives. And I think, you know, diversity is the right thing to do, but it's also the smart business thing to do. You know, people respond more to ads when they see themselves in the ads. And, you know, going back to it's the right thing to do, you know, representation in media is important. When people see themselves in ads, you know, it makes them feel more empowered. It makes them feel seen and noticed. It makes them feel like they aren't alone and that, you know, the world is for them. And so I think the more we, you know, create, you know, opportunities for people of color, women of color, people from various backgrounds, the more advertising can, you know, benefit, because then we start to to share these rich stories, these rich ideas, and connect more with our audience.
So you mentioned like there was a time when you felt like you were the only, and more often than not, unfortunately, you were. But are you at least beginning seeing promises of progress? And I'll pose a question, but I'll make a bit of an assumption that the events of the last few months have hopefully began to like accelerate some of that progress. Again,
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to lead the witness, but you get my point.
Oh, you're not. Definitely have seen a change in how things are happening, you know, because of the last couple of months. You know, there are a lot more, you know, people who are coming into the space. I feel like a lot of agencies are making the effort now to recruit more. They're creating the pipeline. And I think, you know, my agency that I'm currently at was kind of already, you know, at the forefront of that. But they've recently started ramping up their recruiting efforts as well. And so when I was at Goodby, when I started at Goodby, I was literally the only person of color in the creative department. We could count on one hand how many, you know, Black people were actually in the building. And I was like, wow, I really am the only here. And I had to change my way of thinking and realize I'm not the only, I'm just the first. And I decided to change my way in thinking to, it's not a burden. It's not bad to be the only, because if you view yourself as the first, that means you will be the one to bring in more people. So what I started doing at, you know, Goodby was helping to create content that would inspire other people to join our organization. So me and another, you know, person of color at Goodby who was in the account side, Crystal Thomas, and another strategist formed GSMP Voices, which allowed us to start create a space at Goodby where we can share like point of view of people, you know, from different people of different walks of life. And through releasing that content, it actually helped inspire other people to join Goodby. And we were able to start growing our ranks of people of color. And I think that's what other agencies need to start doing, is creating a space within their culture and their organization for people to feel like they can be visible, for people to feel like they can be heard and they can share their opinions. Because once you create that space for people, people will come, and it will, you know, you'll be able to build that pipeline to the talent that wants to get into the industry, you know, because we talk about diversity and we want diversity and inclusion, but advertising has a pipeline problem. So if you don't address the pipeline issue and work on ways of, bringing people in, it's not going to change anything. And yes, in the last couple of months, there's been all these conversations about we need more of this and we more of that, but it's like, but really, what are you doing to change that problem? And I think a lot of agencies need to look at themselves and honest about the fact that they are lacking representation, and they need to do the work of recruiting people. So think of recruitment in a couple of different ways. Create content that speaks to different communities. Go out to colleges and recruit young people. A lot of people don't know what you can do in advertising. I tell people I'm an art director and it falls on deaf ears. They don't know what that is. So it's one, recruiting and creating awareness of the opportunities that advertising can offer people for the career opportunities, but it's also showing up and saying and being behind people of color and creating the content and showing that you're there and you're an ally to people and you want to bring them in with the work that you're doing.
Awesome. It's really interesting because I see your answer. You see the world through the eyes and ears and lens of an activist. And I'm sure part of that's from your, being firmly planted in your nonprofit, roots and when you spent your time in there, and then what you did with Not a Gun. But I feel really interesting about just the way you answer. You're very active. Like, you understand you have an active role in helping facilitate that change. So can you talk a little bit more about why activism, both in and out of the office, is so important to you?
When people say activism, people automatically think, oh, I'm going to go to a protest. Oh, I'm going to do an X, Y, and Z. And I think people, get too worked up over, what activism can and can't be. And for me, I look at activism as something that I can incorporate in my job through every way possible. And if that's working with nonprofit clients and doing that work, it's great and it's wonderful because I'm so connected to that. But I think people need to rethink the way that activism can show up in their day-to-day. So, even as far as like how you cast is a form of activism. Are you looking for diverse people to represent, in the spots that you're making? Are you looking for diverse talent when you do your photo shoots? That's a form of activism. Activism can show up in a lot of different ways. We're not always fortunate enough to be like, oh, I can work on, this campaign for Planned Parenthood, or I can do something for Not a Gun. If that's not, always possible, what ways can you do, what ways can you be an activist? Is that through casting? Is that through hosting talks where you bring in people of color to, share their point of view and their background? I think, activism is very accessible and it can be a part of your day-to-day job. And it can also exist, outside of what you do in your day-to-day job, what you do in your life. And so even with like my podcast, having an episode dedicated to, how lies show up for people of color, that's also a form of activism. So activism really can show up however you want it to be. It doesn't have to be, I'm holding a sign at a protest. Any form of activism can be a way to protest, any injustice and inequality that you see in the world.
I love it. It makes it feel so much more accessible versus have to make this really, like you said, holding up a sign, making a really loud and proud proclamation. But even those things like how you think about casting differently, how you think about concepting differently, that, make it incorporating part of your job can be a form of activism. So love that.
Yeah. Representation in media is a powerful thing. And, when I started, I never met another female Black art director until like 2-3 years into my career. And when I started going to like Adcolor and you hear all the Black people, it was just so refreshing just to see other people that look like me. And so like, representation is just so important. So that's why I'm a big advocate of, using casting as a form of activism.
Right. Similar and I guess potentially somewhat related note, I know in our previous conversations, you talked quite a bit about allyship and the power of mentorship and whether you're the mentor or the mentee. Can you talk about that in terms of like, not only how you craft your career, but equally how you potentially craft your work as well?
Yes. And to go back to the activism thing, I think allyship is also a form of activism. That's how you can be, an activist, because, allyship can be mentorship. People of color, young people coming up, they need more mentors and more allies, people to advocate for them, people to, you know, invest in their career journey and help them get to the next step. For me, I struggled early on in my career and my transition into advertising because I did not have mentors to show me the ropes or to, you know, show me where to go or how to present, or, you know, to support the ideas that I was bringing to the table. But, you know, I went back to ad school, and once I got into ad school, I used that as a vehicle for me to network and find mentors. And once I started building, you know, this network of mentors and people who were there for me, it felt like, you know, things started changing. I had people I could go to for advice. I had people who I could, you know, ask questions to, or be like, hey, I'm having this hard time pitching ideas to this one creative director. I don't think he understands, you know, when I pitch ideas that are full of culture. You know, it just offers a space for people to be able to, you know, grow and understand, you know, the industry in itself, because it's a tricky space to navigate when you don't see other people like you, or you don't know who to go to for guidance. And so for me, what's been very, you know, critical in my journey as an art director has been, you know, cultivating, you know, the networks and the connects, and having people provide me, you know, mentorship and consult. And through that, I've been able to grow. And one of the reasons why I was able to, you know, go from SS&K to Goodby Silverstein and Partners, which is such a great, you know, ad agency, was through a mentor who was like, I think you need to go big. I think you need to go out west, and you need to go to this big shop, and you need to, you know, be with the heavy hitters and do big work. And I was like, I'm not ready for that. But he really pushed me in a way to see that I was bigger than what I thought I was. You know, he really like pushed me to see that that I could do cool work, that I could do big, you know, campaigns and big ideas. He saw the potential in me, and he really pushed me to do that. And it was great having that, you know, relationship and having someone to believe in me, because early on I didn't have the confidence to want to make big moves or to make big jumps, or to feel like I could go and work at like a big shop. I was kind of scared. So it was really important having his mentorship and guidance. And, you know, from that one person, I've started, you know, just building, like I said, my network of people who are, you know, guiding me in my career. And one thing I've learned as a person of color, and, you know, and that I know a lot of people of color do, is they try to look for mentors that look like them. And in advertising, there aren't a lot of mentors that, you know, look like me. So I've had to step out of my comfort zone and reach out to other people who don't look like me and see them as mentors. And so that's why I say, you know, allyship is great, because if you are, you know, a white woman or a white man, you can, you know, become a role model to someone who is young and inexperienced and a person of color, and you can help them in their career. And by doing that, you can help solve the issue of diversity within the industry.
Interesting. You brought up about looking for mentors who don't look like you. So now, as a, you know, woman of color is quickly rising through the ranks, do you feel pressure to like now mentor and give back? I mean, does part of your...
Yes. And, you know, for me, you know, because people have given me, you know, advice, I now take my experience and I'm using my podium to empower other young creatives or strategists or, you know, account people to go further in their career. And so I try to give back and do talks and provide mentorship to young people who look like me and don't look like me, and let them know that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to start over. It's okay to show up as yourself in these spaces that don't sound inviting. I show up to, you know, rooms and I'm the only, and I show up with my Malika dreads and my Malika name, and, you know, people have become welcoming, and you know, I think most people are here to help. So I try to pay that back, you know, and tell people that it's okay to show up as you are, and you can learn from my past mistakes and my past experiences. And so I've partnered with a couple of smaller nonprofits to provide mentorship to people who are doing more like work study stuff. So there's like a great program in San Francisco, for example, where they enroll young people to learn film production. It's like a more of a work study program. And I'll go and I'll go to like their their review nights, and I'll look at their portfolio and I'll tell them my story. And by me telling my story to them, it inspires them to want to do more with what they're learning with film and production. So there are a lot of ways to show up and be a mentor. And, you know, people hit me up on LinkedIn all the time. They ask me about, oh, was ad school a good choice? Or, you know, how do you feel working on certain brands versus other brands, even though you have like this nonprofit, you know, background. And so I try to be as open as possible and tell people about my journey and expectations of ad school. Like I always tell people when they reach out to me about ad school, like it's one of those things where you get in, you get out what you put in. So I'm always very transparent about that. And I think I've greatly benefited from, you know, my experience at Miami Ad School, because I got the portfolio I needed and it got me in the door. So I try to, you know, share my experience to other people who are looking for advice. Yeah.
Awesome. So before I start firing questions at you, just random unsolicited questions, and I asked the folks in the audience to do the same in our Q&A function, courtesy of Zoom. Are there any random thoughts or knowledge you want to drop on us, or you want me to just start firing off some questions?
Oh man, I think for me and my journey, the more that I embraced who I was and my opinions and my taste style, the more work that I was able to make. And I think that, you know, people need to try to embrace their most authentic self. You know, people will want to work with you when they like you and they see what you can do and they see what you can bring to the table. And, you know, speaking to diversity, you know, if I show up and I don't bring my culture, you know, then what is the point of diversity? You know, we need to show up and bring our cultures, our point of views and how we see the world to the table so that, you know, everyone can get representation. So authenticity is important, and it's the best way to hone your craft, because you're going to want to work on things that are true to you and that you love and feel like really express you. And I always, you know, tell people, you know, be yourself. And it's something you always hear, but I feel like you have to hear it more than, you know, 10 times throughout your career to really understand, you know, what it means to really be yourself and embrace yourself. I used to be afraid to pitch ideas that were probably too Black for, you know, some CDs. And now I don't stop myself from pitching those ideas anymore. I'm not afraid to bring my point of view to the table, because that's why I'm here. I'm here to show the world like my point of view. And so my advice to people is to always show up and bring their point of view and their authentic self to the table.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. You ready for some rapid fire questions, Malika?
I'm ready for some rapid fire questions.
All right. So, of course, doing my homework and reading up on you, not as a stalker, as a fan. It's interesting. One of the questions I saw posed to you was, what's your main strength as a creative person? And your answer was, I bring craft to projects I touch. So can you tell us about how you do that, or why you think that potential may be your superpower?
I think this is my superpower because I am a person that's all about the details. I like to see the smallest version of the story, but also like the biggest version of the story. Like, how is it coming to life in all the ways? And so for me, like, I believe craft, like for me, craft is like being able to have this line of red thread that connects like all the dots from the smallest asset, even if it's like a Twitter post, to like the largest asset, whatever the brand film is. Like, what is that line that connects the whole campaign and project together? And I think that is something that I excel at. And I think that's something that more people should do, is think about, you know, the idea and the concept from the biggest version of what it is to the smallest execution, and make sure that there is consistency throughout. And then that is something that I love to see in projects. And that's something that's a part of my craft.
Nice. So you mentioned, you gave your shout out to Brooklyn born. You have those proud British, Jamaican, and Trinidadian roots. You went to school in Florida. You worked on the East Coast. You worked on the West Coast. When you think about all those diverse experiences, all those diverse places that you've, you know, lived and worked, how do you think those come together to impact, you know, your approach to craft and that attention to the details you mentioned?
I think I like to bring a global perspective to the work that I do. And so, and one of those things is I like to cast real people in a lot of my spots. And I know that's scary for some people. They want to go with SAG talent a lot, but I think there's something nice about telling real, authentic stories. And even right now, I'm not even in the US. I'm actually in Tulum in Mexico, because I like to embed myself in other people's cultures and see how they live. And, you know, as someone who has lived in other places and likes to live in other places, I like to see, you know, other people's stories, and because of that, I like other people's stories to come to life in the work that I do. And so with some of the projects, most recently, something that will be launching, you know, later this year for HP, we actually found like real Gen Z people to be in, you know, my latest spot. In a spot that I did, you know, early on in my career for SSNK, we actually shot like real people on the street. This is for my campaign As American As. And that's one of my most beloved campaigns, because it was actual real people in a real campaign. And so I think, you know, as someone who has traveled, there's just something so nice about reflecting the world back to itself and sharing with people other people's lived experiences, you know, through the work that I'm doing.
Awesome. And folks, if you didn't catch that, she did mention she's currently working in Tulum, Mexico. And because we were opening the virtual doors, we were joking about how Malika is crafting her best life, and we have a lot to learn from the way she's rolling.
I am crafting my best life. I am trying to live my best life. I mean, it's work from home. So basically for me, that means work from anywhere. And Tulum is my home right now. So that's where I'm choosing to work from. Well
played, friend. Hey, I build on one of the conversations from the audience to kind of build on what we were just talking about. As a professional who has moved to a few different workplaces after getting established, how did or do you evaluate those next opportunities?
Yes. I think one thing that a piece of advice that I got early on in my career is to look at the work that the agency is making before you make a jump to another city or location. You know, for me, it was kind of tough to move from New York to San Francisco, only because, you know, as a Caribbean American, there's a huge Caribbean American, you know, population out in New York. My family was in New York, but San Francisco offered me a big opportunity. And at first I was like, I don't know about this city. But then I was looking at, you know, Goodby Silverstein and Partners and the work that they were doing. And I was like, that's the work I want to do. Like, I want to make some of the great work that, you know, these guys are making. And that's kind of how I evaluated that decision to jump there and to make that jump. Because for me, it was about the work and what I could learn and how I could better my craft versus where I was in New York. And so it takes a little bit of willing to be uncomfortable to grow. You know, you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so I made that conscious decision knowing that I was going to a space where there weren't a lot of people who looked like me, but there was an opportunity to do great work. And that's what, you know, ultimately sold me on making that move to a city where I didn't know anyone, but it was the opportunity.
Awesome. All right, since now we're just ripping questions, I'm coming back on camera. You and I hanging. It's kind of like Bag of Lies, just us, a couple of friends having a conversation.
Right, we're just vibing.
Hey, so speaking of Bag of Lies, so we all had the classic question: if you had a chance to have dinner, whoever you want, 1, 2, 3, dead or alive, I'm not instead of asking you that, who would you want to have, dead or alive, on the Bag of Lies podcast?
Oh man. I think I would want to have Michelle Obama, one, because I'm obsessed with her, but also I kind of want to know, what does Michelle Obama lie about? You know, like, like what does she get away with? Like, what does she lie about in like the White House? Like, does she tell people that she decorated a room, but no, she had an interior designer do it? Like, I'm kind of interested in like what her little things, you know, would be. I've always also been obsessed with like Bob Marley. I would want to interview him. I always thought that he had like a fascinating life, and it, you know, it was cut, you know, tragically short. I would love to interview him. And then, you know, who else? That's such a good question. There's so many people. There's so many people that I could interview. I also would want to interview Rihanna. I feel like she would make a good guest for Bag of Lies. I feel like me and her would have a lot to talk about. Rihanna, if you're watching, please holler at me.
I'm sure she's tuning into the Adcraft Tuesday talk.
I know.
We've got that kind of pull, so yeah. Awesome. You mentioned one piece of advice about, being willing to, go outside your comfort zone and take those chances. Is that the one you put up as the best piece of advice you've received, or are there others?
The other piece of advice that I would have for people would be to not take no for an answer, to not be afraid of starting over. I thought that, okay, I didn't get into advertising the way I thought I would have got into, and maybe nonprofit work is it for me. But then I made the decision of being like, nah, I'm not going to give up my dream of being a creative. So I went back to ad school, did ad school, got my portfolio, and got my foot back in the door. And so that just speaks to, like, don't just stop if one door closes, because there will be other doors that open for you. There will be other people who will give you opportunities. And also, don't wait for people to create opportunities. Create opportunities for yourself. And that's one thing that I've really learned in the last couple of years. And that's why, I also did Bag of Lies, because I was looking for a creative outlet and I needed that opportunity. So I created that opportunity for myself. So, like, if the opportunities aren't there, create it for yourself. Don't wait for people to make them for you. And don't take no for an answer. Find the other door that's going to be open for you if the other ones are closed.
All right, so then I'll flip it. Is that the best advice you've given? Or is there some other piece of advice that blew the person's mind and changed their life forever?
Man, best piece of advice I've given, that might be it. Or just be yourself. I mean, I'm fully on board with that. Just embrace what makes you messy. And I think that's why people like Bag of Lies, is because we just show up as, our messiest, uncomplicated, unbothered selves, and people are here for the ride. And I think that goes a part of being your brand. People want to see who you are, the authentic you. We're post the influencer age. People don't want influencers anymore. They want to see contributors. How are you contributing to the world? How are you contributing to conversations? How are you contributing to, changing the things that we aren't vibing with anymore? So I think, one of the things that people should do is really embrace, like, who they are and what they're trying to do in the world, and just show up as their authentic self.
Wow, that's really interesting about the, you didn't use that word, but I'll use it, the kind of backlash or the push on the influencers about finding those authentic contributors, the people who are, it's less about the show and it's more about the go. That's really great.
It's less about the show and more about the go. And it's like, no one wants to be sold anything anymore. They want to see what you're doing and how you're showing up in the world. So think about what your brand is and what you want to bring to the table. And I think people will buy into you.
Awesome. All right, another classic question. What keeps you up at night?
Like what, bothers me deep to my core?
Yeah, okay, let's start there.
I'm just trying to push on that question. I love typography. People have always said that I'm a bit of a type snob. So if I see bad type, my friends are always bothered by it. If we're on the subway and I'll see an ad and it's bad type, I'll start going on and on about, what this person did wrong and how to current it, open up the leading. That's something that I can never let slide. So I always call it out. I always am I go off on tangents. And that's probably the thing that will probably keep me up late at night. I get excited about building decks and making things look pretty and having the right font. So I can spend hours looking for the right type for a project. So that's probably the thing that I get the most anal about.
I love how your answer was related to craft and your attention to detail. So that was unrehearsed, so well done. All right, so then let's focus on the positive and the thing that doesn't keep you up at night. What has you hopping out of bed in the morning that just, as soon as your eyes open, you're like, boom, I don't know if there's one thing or maybe a collection of things that just get you super excited.
Just the prospect of collabing with people. I'm very lucky in this past year that I've been able to collab with so many different people on different podcasts and different series. And I get excited about new projects all the time. And I think that's one of the things that gets me out of bed in the morning, is looking forward to connecting with people, especially in a time like this where we can't really be with each other. We can't meet people in person. But I've still found ways to connect with people like me and you, Jeff. We besties now, and we've only connected through Zoom. So it's building those connections and collabing with people is probably the thing that I'm most excited for, and I look forward to the most, is building projects and doing new things with people.
Nice. All right, so another question in our Q&A. When working on projects today, do you see the shift towards inclusion as real-time by companies to create representative content based around strong aspirational remodels of color are mostly as a way to capitalize on a previously undermarketed buying segment. That's deep, that's heavy.
That is heavy. And it is something that I think about and consider a lot of times, because here's the thing, you know, as I've mentioned earlier, I'm big on authenticity, and you can smell bullshit, you know, when an advertiser is putting out BS, and you can tell when an advertiser is being genuine with their intentions. And I think, you know, our job as creatives is to come up with the work and the ideas that if we're going to, you know, fight for culture and be about culture and, you know, be inclusive and diverse, if we have to do it in genuine and authentic ways. We can't do it in ways where we're just being vulture cultures and we're just benefiting off of, you know, other people's cultures, you know. And what I mean by that is, like, Black culture is cool and Black culture sells. And I often see other brands adopting, you know, Black culture just for the purpose of selling things without actually investing and giving back to, you know, the actual artists and the actual, you know, people of color that are the creators. So if you are going to, you know, do something that taps into another, you know, culture, don't appropriate. Actually bring them to the table and work with them and collab with them to bring your idea to life. And that's the most authentic way to do it. But don't steal from a culture just to sell your product. And I think a lot of brands are, you know, because of the cultural moment that we're having, this shifting conversation about, you know, equality and diversity, they're doing things because they have to check boxes. And you shouldn't do it to check boxes. You should do it if your interest and your company and your values and your mission are really behind, you know, diversity and inclusion. You know, do it in the most genuine way possible. Don't just make ads that, you know, are just nodding to things because that's what you think your consumers, you know, want to see. Because your consumers, you'll get called out on Twitter. You will be part of cancel culture real quick if you do it in a fake way. And so I think it's a tricky balance. And I think, you know, advertisers and marketers and the brands need to come to the table and do things in the most authentic way possible.
All right. Another question. Was it hard to get into nonprofit? Follow up. Do you miss nonprofit? And if so, why?
It wasn't hard for me at the time to get into nonprofit. And I tell you the reason why. Nonprofit work is great, but it's also, you know, the jobs that are the most underpaid and undervalued. And the people who go into nonprofits are generally, you know, women of color or people of color who, you know, are doing the hard work but aren't being paid well. So I was very much underpaid in nonprofit. And that was also, you know, a part of the reasons for me to pivot from, you know, being in nonprofit work and going and finding a career in advertising, because advertising pays better. But to say that I miss nonprofit work, I don't. And the reason being is because I still find ways to partner with nonprofits and do the work and help them. I'm on the board of several other small nonprofits. I also like to, you know, volunteer my time to do art direction for, you know, smaller companies and smaller projects. And, you know, as I've been able to do this year, I was able to work with Creators Conversations to launch Not a Gun. So I'm still able to get my cake and eat it too a little bit. And I know not everyone is as fortunate as me in order to be able to do that. But if I wasn't able to create work, you know, through my 9-to-5 for nonprofit works, I would find other opportunities to partner with nonprofits, because it's important to me to be able to create content for people who don't always get the right platforms to share their message. So because I have so much love for that work, I still find ways to do it.
Okay, so I'm curious your secret, because you mentioned that, you know, your regular Goodby Silverstein Partners job, you're on several nonprofits, you've got your bag of life side hustles, you're already entertaining more side hustles. So how do you keep all those plates spinning, and then someone who's all about the craft and that attention to detail and doing things well, how do you do them all well?
How do I do them all well? Well, like I said, I find great people to collab with. You know, I am always honest about my bandwidth, what I can do well and what I can't. And if there's something I can't do well, I like to delegate that to someone else, or I'll be honest about it. I'll tell people I need more time. The other thing is I'm a morning person. I wake up early. I seize the day. I love to-do lists. And, you know, me and you had a conversation earlier where I was saying I'm type A, but type A flexible. You know, I'm all about the details, but I'm also like the type of person that's like, if things happen, they happen, you know, you just have to be honest about it and have real conversations. You know, I've had experiences where I wanted to do more for a nonprofit, but knew that I didn't have the bandwidth. So I had to have, you know, those difficult conversations and being like, hey, can I just consult on this project? I can't commit to doing the designs for you because I just honestly don't have the bandwidth right now. And I think it's just being honest about people, about what you can actually accomplish and do with them. And then also being, you know, honest about this is a collaboration. I can't just do all the work myself. You got to show up too, you know, with some of the work as well. So, you know, it's always 50-50. My approach to doing things. And with Bag of Lies, it's great because my co-host Sharina Chandler, who's an amazing writer, you know, she helps with a lot of that. And I've been fortunate to work with 2 great producers and an executive producer who has helped shepherd that project. And then with the other nonprofits, you know, I've always been, you know, very honest about my bandwidth.
All right, last big one. So you've proven and spoke to how you're open and excited about what may be next and willing to take the jump to what's next. Without getting you sideways with Goodby Silverstein, because I'm not doing that. What's next for Malika Reid?
I've actually been thinking about that a lot lately because we live in this new world where we work from home, and it kind of allows you to free up your schedule to work on things when you can work on them. And so I've been thinking about, you know, more entrepreneurial pursuits. And so I'm hoping to launch like my own, you know, crafts and good business. I won't say too much about it now, but I'm hoping to become, you know, more of an entrepreneur and have more ownership in some businesses further along the line. But I also want to continue my pursuit as a creative and to continue being creative. So I'm pretty sure there'll be some overlap there. But for me, the buck doesn't stop at just being a creative. And I think the great thing about, you know, being in advertising is it really teaches you how to, one, come up with big ideas and then how to execute them well. And by executing them well, it's with the craft, but then also in an efficient way. And so now that I have like all these tools under my belt as an art director, I feel confident that I can go out and start a business, or I can launch XYZ, or I can create a short film, or I can do these things. So for me, the future is wide open and it is looking bright because I'm excited for all the things that I'm going to collab on and the things, the mini empire that I'm going to build with all the tools that I have under my belt.
Awesome. All right, so 2 final beats. Thank you from me personally, as well as all Adcraft for taking the time to have this Tuesday talk with us. So namaste, much gratitude. And the other thing is, I got to tell you, when I was off camera, when you were, you know, telling a bit of your story and sharing a bit of your intel, my phone was blowing up with, I love her. Her energy is unbelievable. She's got such great mojo. So thank you for bringing some positive mojo into our world today, because I too was feeding off that like a vampire. So
I'm all about the good vibes. Like, come on,
Yeah.
we all got to have the right energy and start your day right and just keep it going.
Nice. Well, thank you again. This has been awesome. I love talking with you, and I'm glad I made that kind of unsolicited reach out and we were able to come new BFFs. So thank you. And then to everyone else, thank you for coming in today, for joining us today. And don't forget, we got Carrie Walsh Jennings and Mike Tirico next week for next Tuesday's Tuesday Talk. And enjoy the rest of the day, y'all.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks again.